About 10 years ago, when I was still at university, I was dating a girl I genuinely thought might turn into something serious. We had been together for around 4 or 5 months at that point. Not extremely long, but long enough that we had built some routines together. We studied together, hung out with the same group of friends, and spent most weekends going out to the same bars and clubs around campus. At that stage of university life, everything felt simple. Classes during the week, cheap food, late night conversations, and nights out that blurred into early mornings. That particular night started like any other. Our group had decided to go out to one of the busiest clubs near campus. It was one of those places that was always packed with students. Loud music, flashing lights, cheap drinks, and a line outside the door that wrapped around the block. When we got inside, the energy was exactly what you'd expect. The dance floor was packed shoulder to shoulder. The DJ was blasting music so loud you could feel the bass vibrating through your chest. Everyone was drinking, laughing, dancing. My girlfriend and I were having a good time. Nothing seemed off. She was a little more drunk than usual, but that wasn't unusual on a night out. She was dancing, joking around with friends, pulling me onto the dance floor. At some point in the night, she leaned close to me so I could hear her over the music and said she needed some fresh air. She said she felt a bit lightheaded from the heat and the drinks. It seemed completely normal. I told her to go ahead and that I'd stay inside with the group. I honestly didn't think anything of it. Nights out are chaotic. People drift in and out constantly. About 45 minutes passed. I was still inside talking with some friends near the bar when one of my mates walked over and tapped me on the shoulder. He leaned in and said, "Mate, I think your girlfriend's been outside flirting with one of the bouncers." At first I laughed. I genuinely thought he was exaggerating or messing with me. My friend group loved to joke around, and sometimes they'd make things sound way more dramatic than they actually were. Plus, I didn't want to be that guy who gets jealous over nothing. In my head, I thought, she's outside, she's drunk, maybe she's chatting with someone. That's not automatically a problem. So I brushed it off. We kept dancing, the music changed a few times, and I finished another drink. But after another couple songs, curiosity started creeping in. Not panic, just curiosity. So I told my friends I was going to step outside and check on her. When I walked outside, the cold night air hit me immediately. A few people were standing around smoking and talking, but she wasn't there. I scanned the crowd a couple times just to make sure I hadn't missed her. Nothing. Then I noticed a small group of guys standing nearby, laughing about something. I walked over and asked casually if they'd seen a girl matching her description talking to a bouncer earlier. The reaction I got was strange. The moment I described her, the group suddenly erupted into cheering and laughing. One of them shouted something like, "Yeah, mate, we saw her!" Another one clapped his friend on the shoulder like they'd just witnessed something entertaining. At first I thought they were just drunk and messing around, but then one of them pointed toward the club entrance and said they had been watching her flirt with one of the bouncers for a while. He said the two of them had been laughing, touching each other's arms, standing really close. Then, according to them, the bouncer had led her back inside through a door behind one of the bars. They were all laughing as they told me this story. To them it was just another piece of late-night club entertainment. To me, it suddenly felt like the ground had shifted slightly under my feet. I thanked them quickly and hurried back inside. The music felt louder now, the lights harsher. I walked around the bar area trying to figure out which door they were talking about. Behind one of the counters, partially hidden from the dance floor, there was a plain metal door. The kind that staff usually use to access storage areas. My heart was beating faster now. Not racing yet, but faster. Part of me was still hoping this whole thing was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe they had just gone somewhere quieter to talk. Maybe she felt sick and he was helping her. Maybe... I pushed the door open. Inside was a small keg storage room. Stacks of metal beer kegs were lined against the walls. The air smelled like spilled beer and cold metal. And that's when everything stopped making sense. In the dim light of that room, I saw something that completely froze me in place. My girlfriend was there. She was bent over one of the kegs. Her dress was pushed up, and the bouncer, a huge guy compared to me, was standing behind her. For a moment, my brain struggled to process what I was seeing. The music from the club was still pounding through the walls, making everything feel surreal, like watching a silent movie where you couldn't hear the dialogue. I couldn't hear what they were saying, if anything, but I could see her face. Her eyes were closed, and the look on her face told me everything I needed to know about what was happening. The bouncer briefly turned his head when the door opened. For a split second our eyes met, but he clearly had no idea who I was. To him I was just some random guy who had accidentally opened the wrong door. And the thing that stuck with me the most was this. She never even opened her eyes. She had no idea I was standing there. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. 10 seconds that felt much longer. My brain wasn't angry yet. It wasn't even fully hurt yet. It was just stunned, like my mind hadn't caught up to the reality of the moment. Then something inside me clicked. I quietly stepped back, closed the door, and walked away. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't confront them. I didn't tell the bouncer who I was. I didn't even go back to my friends right away. I just walked out of the club and stood outside for a while, trying to process what had just happened. Later that night, my friends eventually found me and asked what happened. I told them I caught her cheating. That was it. Most of them assumed the obvious. That I'd walked in on her hooking up with the guy. And I never corrected them. Even to this day, almost nobody knows the full story. Not because I was protecting her, but because, at the time, I genuinely didn't know how to even explain what I had seen. Some things are so unexpected that your brain doesn't have a category for them. That night ended the relationship immediately, but the image of opening that door and realizing the person you trusted was living a completely different moment just meters away from you. That's something that stayed with me for a long time.